Well, let's talk about specifics here, really, the reality of it, and talk about strength and all of that, and the conditions on war zones. As you know, some elite units have stringent physical requirements, like to be a Navy SEAL, you have to be able to do 50 push-ups in 2 minutes. Do you think the military should adjust those qualifications for women?
No, I don't. You know, I think that if there is a good reason to have very high requirements in a physical realm for some of these jobs, they shouldn't change those just for women, because there are incredible women out there who are ready and chomping at the bit, not only to meet those standards, but exceed them. And I will tell you about a good friend of mine who I went through the military police school with, Captain Diana Lay. She did 100 push-ups in 2 minutes. And she's a great example of one of our many fine women warriors that we have out there.
Okay, men and women are different. We know that, Tulsi. So how should the military handle pregnancy, for example, for women in combat units? Should a combat unit leader be able to direct a woman member not to get pregnant?
Well, look, I think that the point here is both men and women are professionals. They care very much about the mission. They're there because they're there to serve our country. Looking at someone in a deployed setting, it's not in their best interest to get pregnant overseas, but if it happens, it happens, and we take care of each other. The point really is that we have a highly trained, highly skilled, very motivated force, and by opening these doors to women, we will only be stronger because of the unique capabilities that women bring to the table.
Representative Tulsi Gabbard, thank you very much.
Getting folks to understand in reality what has already been happening, the contributions that women in uniform have been making in these combat settings, the hardships and the austere conditions they've been living and operating and exceeding the standards on already. Now this is really just an official recognition of what these women have been doing in combat for quite some time.
Ryan, why do you have such strong feelings that women aren't capable of participating in these combat units?
Well, Wolf, you know, I think people have a mistaken view of what's really happening. People are assuming that all future wars are going to resemble the insurgencies in Iraq and Afghanistan. But my war, the invasion of Iraq in 2003, was a mechanized push, a conventional war. We had Marines trapped in amphibious assault vehicles for 48 hours. The column wasn't going to stop for anyone. So if you had to go to the restroom, you had to pee in a bottle inches from the comrade next to you. If you had to go to if you developed dysentery, you had to poo in a bag, in an MRE bag, inches from your comrade's face. Now, introducing women into that environment can be really traumatic and humiliating. And combat's already difficult enough. You don't need to add this other layer.
Go ahead, Congressman.
Well, Ryan, you know, I respect you and thank you for your service. I've been honored to serve with many women who've already operated under these circumstances. This is not something new. Women have been operating shoulder to shoulder with men in these types of settings within Iraq and Afghanistan. Some of the things that you've described are things that I and friends of mine and people that I've served with have already experienced. And I think that's the strength of our military. The strength of our military is because men and women adapt and overcome, because we're there to conduct a mission to serve our country. So all of these other things that are societal norms back home, it doesn't count. You're in combat. All of that stuff goes out the window.
You know, Ryan, we used to hear similar arguments before they allowed African Americans to serve equally with Caucasians in the United States military, before they allowed gay military personnel to serve openly, unit cohesion, things like that. Are you concerned that the arguments you're making now have that historic resonance?
No, I think that's apples and oranges, Wolf. You know, there's a reason in the U.S. that we have separate restrooms. We have separate shower facilities, separate locker rooms. You know, we even have separate sports teams. It's because it can be traumatizing to be forced to do things that you're uncomfortable with in front of members of the opposite sex. And, you know, combat's a very hard game, and I think people are being awfully cavalier about this restriction being lifted. You know, combat's a life or death game, and if we get this wrong, the loser dies. And, you know, I'm just giving this perspective as from a grunt's point of view, a guy that was a sergeant on the ground living in these conditions. And, you know, I talked to my comrades, and they all feel the same way, that we couldn't imagine having a woman in our midst when we were going through some of these traumatic situations.
Congresswoman?
Well, you know, I can understand where you're coming from, Ryan, and I think you'll find the opposite is also true, that when you talk to folks who have already operated under these austere circumstances in combat, shoulder to shoulder with women, they've recognized the great contributions and unique contributions that having a unique skill set at your disposal to conduct a mission. Again, I really believe that these things fall to the wayside as you respect your comrades, regardless of what the differences may be, whether it be gender or race or religion. Again, it's the strength of our country that allows us all to set that aside and put the mission first.
We're almost out of time, but Ryan, quickly, do you have a problem with gays serving openly in the U.S. military in combat roles, the kind of combat roles you're describing?
No, Wolf, I don't. You know, everyone keeps their, out on the battlefield, their sexuality to themselves. So I do not have a problem with gays, serving in the military. Everyone's there to get the mission accomplished.
Ryan Smith, a provocative article in the Wall Street Journal. Thanks very much for coming in. And Tulsi Gabbard, the Democratic Congresswoman from Hawaii. Thanks to you for coming in as well, Iraq War veteran, both Iraq War veterans.